My name is Jeff Morgan. I am here at CPAC 2022 in Orlando, Florida, and I'm here with Trevor Cross. Trevor, it's so good to meet you in person.
Ditto. Shake your hand here as we talk.
Yeah. So what brought you to CPAC?
Actually, it was kind of a crazy story. Eric texted me and said he was coming here, and I've been a longtime supporter of Dad Talk Today, and I happened to be on days off and was like, yeah, I'll go. I bought my ticket, bought my plane ticket, bought the hotel and everything, and just showed up. So
that's great. And we were able to talk just a little bit here, and there were a lot of things about you that I was learning as we were talking back and forth. So you own an oil company, is that correct?
Yeah, well, I own a consulting company in the oil and gas industry, yes. 25 years or so now, since 1996. So yeah, about 25 years. I've drilled oil and gas wells all over the world.
Oh, that I had no clue whatsoever. So, and I guess we were talking about this. We got into this a little bit because we're talking about the Ukraine situation right now.
Yeah.
And you had some perspectives, and I'd like to just go ahead and share what you see.
Of course, I can't say definitively, but there is a lot of stuff that hits red flags for me. One of which is, why would this be happening in Ukraine at this point in time? Mm-hmm. First of all, we see in the oil and gas industry, we had energy independence under Trump. Mm-hmm. For the first time in over 50 years. Mm-hmm. We were actually forcing the Chinese to buy our excess oil. Which
now, some people would say that's a bad thing. Is that you?
Well, those people are wrong.
Yeah.
Just kidding. But,
yeah.
We saw that happening, and that's why gas prices and heating your home and everything else was actually cheaper. And that even drains down into electricity costs and everything else, because a lot of our power plants are either coal-fired or natural gas-fired. And when we see that go for, natural gas, for instance, went from about $1.83 per decatherm up to, I think it's about $5 per decatherm now. Wow. In a little over a year. But we see that happening, and it's like, why would this be happening unless, it was created to be that way? It's kind of crazy from people in my point of view. A lot of people would think that, if the Republican Party is who would actually make us, money, but we actually make more money under Democrats because they do this,
Because they act in manners that are not really consistent with the American people's.
They give us our peaks and valleys, it's skyrocket and then down, and skyrocket and down. And it's kind of unreal when you actually sit back and look at that. A lot of people will say that it's because of the Keystone Pipeline, but the Keystone Pipeline really isn't that big of a deal. We still move that same oil. That's mostly Canadian tar sands.
Right.
But that just gets moved by rail instead of running by pipeline.
So are you saying then that there's really minimal impact to the Keystone Pipeline? Is it minimal impact? Or, what is the big deal about it then, from your perspective?
From my perspective, it's who owns the rail system. They charge more to move it by rail than what they do to move it by pipeline. Pipeline, obviously, in my opinion, would be safer. There are pipeline leaks, but I think the media jumps on that and makes it out to be 10 times worse than what it actually is. There's no oil company out there that actually wants to lose oil. Why would you do that? Why would you say, oh, we're going to make this ship as cheap as possible and risk losing a lot of our profit? That doesn't make any business sense at all whatsoever.
Right. It's like a person saying, it's in my best interest to burn down my house because I might collect the insurance. Or it's just crazy. Anyway.
You might go to jail forever, but, let's take that risk. No, yeah. Oil companies are very, very protective over their assets. They absolutely are, just like they should be, I think that there's also even more that goes into that. So, for instance, the way that I see this administration jumping, saying, okay, well, we're going to start building all of these electric car charging points. Well, we run a negative on our power grid in the United States. We have to buy power from Mexico and Canada. And so why would we be doing that instead of, building our power grid to be better?
Yeah, and it's also something, I read an article a little bit ago that California was telling people don't charge your car so much.
They're like, no, we have a cold snap coming through, so people have to heat their homes, so don't charge your car. And it's like, well, how am I supposed to get anywhere? Well, buy a generator. So let's run a generator to charge our electric car so that we can heat our home at the same time. But let's keep on running negative on our power grid. There's no sense to any of that. And I again, that comes back to the peaks and valleys. I think that's, what's really messed up about this is.
So I remember with that, wasn't it under President Trump that when the oil futures took a real deep dive that one time, and you were actually being paid to take futures?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah, we went into the negatives for per barrel, and it was like. It was because we started drilling our own. We became energy independent.
Right.
And that was a big shock and a big hit to the oil companies. And they were, but at the same token, we leveled out after that point and kept it pretty consistent. So we were able to go about our lives for a cheaper rate. Whatever that rate is, if you want to break it down by the day or by the week or month or however you want to break it down for your own personal finances. To be able to save that extra money, that really helped a ton of Americans. And it really put the pressure on China, which, I'm definitely a fan of.
Right. So we were talking about oil prices right now. What do you foresee by the end of the summer?
I'm going to say probably between $150 and $200 a barrel.
Wow, I mean that. I remember when that happened. I think it was back in the under Bush, I believe. I mean, the media was crying day and night about what was going on there. I mean, we have these horrendously high oil prices. I don't hear a lot of media talking about that right now.
Well, that's because they have to, make sure that nobody looks bad that's in this administration right now. But I mean, it's going to hit. It's going to hit for sure. I mean, we just went over $100 a barrel. That's the highest it's been since 2014, which I think the highest we've ever had was about $148 a barrel. And that was under Obama. But that was, a lot of that was caused because of bombing Libya, Syria, whatever other Middle Eastern countries shutting off that. The demand doesn't go away. Right, so we have to have that oil no matter what. So in my personal experience, when certain people get into office, they try to shut it down to look good for their constituents, but at the same token, it ends up backfiring and prices skyrocket. And when that happens, it always comes back. Bites them in the rear end.
Yeah. So you don't at this point right now. Then and again, this is just your estimate, and I've heard some industry analysts were talking about the same thing, that the price of oil would be up considerably from what it is even right now. So, I mean, if you're talking about the price of a gallon of gas, I mean, in Texas right now, it's just over $3. It's the first time it's been over $3 for a while, like $3.10, $3.20, depending upon where you go and so on. Yeah. But that could easily be up to $5 a gallon or more.
I would not be surprised to see it hit over $5 a gallon by at least by the end of the year, maybe even by the end of the summer. It's as much as that sucks, especially for Texas. But we also have a lot of other industry issues too. They've shut down a lot of the smaller refineries, so we have these mega refineries that everything has to move down to those refineries, mostly in Louisiana and Texas, and then has to move back up to a lot of these other places. So the cost of transport back and forth, that also throws a wrench in the gears. But in my personal opinion, I would think that we would need a stepping stone. I would like to see car manufacturers start manufacturing cars that run on natural gas. Natural gas is 90% cleaner burning than gasoline is. It doesn't have to be refined. You can pull it right out of the ground, go right through a filter, and go right into your car. A lot of the big oil companies or big car manufacturing companies don't like that because you lose on average about 15% of your horsepower. Mm-hmm. So it makes cars gutless. But with today's technology with turbos, I mean, look at the Ford EcoBoost, for instance. Mm-hmm. You could put the turbo on there and actually make up the difference on that. It would be a good stepping stone to go from that to electric or something different. But at this point in time, it seems like we just jump to one place that we can't make it, and then we go back, and then we go jump again, and we can't make it, go back.
So if you were able to have an advisory position, and I'm not saying that you've qualified for it, I'm not saying that you're even saying that, yeah. But if you were able to change oil policy or energy policy for the country, what suggestions would you have? Absolutely energy first for us. One of the big things is like what's going on in Ukraine right now. We handed over all of that to OPEC and to Russia as soon as Biden got into office. The dumb thing about that is that makes us reliant on them. Right. So
when we were energy independent, we could do what we needed to do, and we can't do that now. Now it's at that point where if we keep going down this road, we're going to see these spikes. It's going to happen, and the cost is going to go up. And I mean, I'm not going to lie, people like me, we do benefit from it. Doesn't mean I like it, you know?
Yeah.
I would say that, you know, well, I don't know. That's kind of a difficult one at that point.
Yeah, no, I just was wondering. So, I mean, the idea that some people have, especially, and I don't know your political affiliation or anything. I would tend to think
I don't really have one, to be honest. It doesn't matter if you're Democrat or Republican, in my opinion.
Yeah.
If I agree with your views, I agree with your views.
Yeah.
It just seems like one side is getting way too skewed for me to actually agree. You know?
Yeah, and I mean we've seen even last year. Perhaps you when you were talking about the electrical grids running at a negative, I think is what the way that you phrased it. Mm-hmm. I mean, we almost lost our power grid last year in Texas,
and we're doing the same thing right now. I mean, look, well, you just tried to fly out of DFW, didn't you? And they didn't have any de-icing stuff for the plane, and you end up getting stranded. Robert was the same way.
So I actually flew out of Love Field, which was a smaller area, and when I got down to the runways, to me looked like they were pretty clear. DFW, you're right, for 2 days the flights were being canceled. Robert was not able to make it down. Jeff Younger was not able to make it down. My flight was delayed, but I was able to make it here. But you're right, I mean, Dallas, Texas, because of some rain and ice.
Yeah.
And I used to work for FedEx. I used to work at a ramp and stuff like that, so I understand some of the needs for some of those things. But what we saw, I mean, Dallas, Texas, were being iced in. It just didn't make any sense.
Yeah, and we're going to see more and more of that, and that's why a lot of this stuff has to change. We have to start looking at the big picture. We have to go, okay, well, some of these places are going to get colder, some of these places are going to get warmer.
Yeah.
I mean, we see record temperatures on both sides, you know.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say that's because of oil and gas, because it may be, but it may not be.
Yeah.
We do see the fact that we go through mini ice ages about every 10,000 years. I mean, there's a lot of other science. Again, don't want to be that guy that denies or says this is what it's for, or because of. But at the same token, we do have to start looking at that. We have to say, okay, well, how can we make this better? And running a negative on the power grid and trying to go electric is not the way that we're going to be able to do that.
So let me transition to a little bit of a different topic here. I was talking with a gentleman yesterday, Wolfgang Mueller, from the Energy Institute of Climate Energy, something. I don't remember exactly the name of the place, but he made a very interesting point. He talked about with energy costs skyrocketing, what it does to families, what it does to our society, because now a greater proportion of our income is being spent just on energy. And what it maybe mean is that you have to have another person work. You might have less time with your family.
Yeah.
I know that part of the reason you're down here is because of family issues that you've experienced in the past that we've addressed on Dad Talk today. But what are your thoughts about his feedback on that with regard to energy prices climbing and social instability, perhaps?
It's in absolutely everything, and a lot of people don't realize that. They think that, okay, well, it just affects you at the gas pump. It doesn't. You can't have anything pretty much without petroleum products. It's every plastic. It's all medical supplies. It's your food industry. It's clothing. I mean, you literally can't get anything that isn't involved in petroleum on this planet. So it affects every aspect of life. We see this surge in prices for everything, and some of that is contributed to that. You know, because if oil prices go up, then cost of literally everything in your house and your life goes up.
Yeah.
What I would like to see is this balance to where we could try to keep some kind of consistency with energy prices. And again, go back to the stepping stone. I would like to see a stepping stone to get us off of fossil fuels at one point. And for somebody with 25 years in the industry, that's saying a lot.
Yeah.
In fact, people that I work with probably won't like that. But
so right now, the drilling activity in the U.S. and Canada offshore, is that increasing?
It's skyrocketing. In fact, between February 4th and February 11th, I think we added 22 rigs, drilling rigs in the United States in that 1 week period, which is a huge jump. I mean, that's a ton of different jobs. That's a ton of different, you know, it's trying to play catch up from the year of being shut down.
Right. So Can you make the argument then that high energy prices are good for the economy?
No.
Okay. I'm trying to think what could people say about this? Well,
There's no benefit other than to people like me. I mean,
Yeah.
I make a killing. I make a lot more money when energy prices are high.
Yeah.
But, I also see the cost of everything going up for myself.
Yeah.
One outweighs the other, obviously. But when you sit back and you watch it, it's like how many people are struggling because of this. And it's because of bad policies. It's because of, the ridiculous things that in my opinion, politicians do just based on what their constituents want that are uneducated on that, actual industry.
Right.
And I think that a lot of people would be, biting off their hand right now if they realized that they were part of why this is happening. I think it would be, if we could get to a point where we were energy independent again and keep it that way and keep the energy costs, at a low base but consistent, where we don't have these spikes up and down.
Right.
That would benefit everybody.
Right.
I mean, as much as I would like us to get off of fossil fuels, there's no possible way at this point. We don't have the infrastructure. We don't have a way to do that.
Right.
It would be a lot better if we did, but we just don't.